Hey, welcome. It is another episode. What do we call these things of the weekly briefing?
I think we just call them weekly briefings.
Okay, it's a weekly briefing. It is Thursday, March the 3rd. We're talking about avoiding burnout. Tim, I'm going to spotlight you, so get ready for your mug to go full screen. Don't be afraid.
Give me full screen.
It's okay. All right. Hey, I'm Joel, and Tim and I are excited to be back with you this week. This is that time of the week where we pause. It's the pause that refreshes, right, Tim? Like Coca-Cola.
Right.
But we pause every week to spend 30 minutes to just talk about what are some of the issues and the hot buttons and topics that are impacting creative studios, business owners around the industry. And Tim, this week we're talking about burnout. Why is this our topic? Why did this even come up?
Well, just like all of our topics, somebody has approached us and talked to us about it. We see a pattern. Usually, it's interesting. Our Thursday morning meetings, when we say, "Hey, what happened this week?" and one person throws something out there, and the rest of us will say, "Oh, that also happened this week or happened recently," and that's where we are. I think there is something that happens at the beginning of a new year. Inevitably, we're already into March and people can't believe it. They can't believe they're already at the finish of their first quarter. It went way too fast. But I also think there's a new way of asking a question of like, what is it worth it anymore? Like, is the work I'm doing worth the effort I'm putting into it? And the great reset that's happened is creating a different kind of chaos for business owners, and they're solving new problems. And some are very eager to solve those problems, and some are thinking, what is this all about? So it just feels like a great moment to remind ourselves about what this really means and how we protect ourselves from it, and how we push through it, especially if we're all feeling it right now.
Well, I'm curious if anyone here is having this experience, because I've heard a few owners talk about this too. Like, hey, New year, we all got fired up about setting goals, and we sat down and we did our factors and we created a plan to achieve those goals. And there's always personal goals too, right? Like, I'm going to get healthy and I'm going to do all these other things. And then February, right? You're still kind of on that buzz and that high. And then March is when you start to realize, well, wait a minute, I'm not really making much progress, or this isn't going to work. I feel like things are really still the same as they were last year. And was this all just a bunch of, much ado about nothing? So what now what, right? The disillusionment starts to kind of set in because the first quarter is almost done and we're looking maybe at numbers or at reports, or just like, wait a minute, do I really have any more time? Do I have any more freedom? Do I have any more fame and glory? Uh-oh. We start to despair, right?
I think it's important to reconcile that everything in life has like a seasonality to it. There are so many different seasons we're living in. There's kind of annual seasons that we take them all the time. There's life seasons that we go through. Our businesses have certain seasons, even product lines that we have and clients and different capabilities, all kind of have a season, beginning, middle, end, evolution, revolution, transformation kind of movements to it. And I think that seasonality, some of us, when we are first starting our business, we lean into a season. There's an opportunity season that we realize there's something unique that we're doing, something very profitable. We took advantage of it, and we find that and we ride that wave for a while. Now, that's the annual season. You start getting into the business running mode. And again, if you didn't know how to run a business, the first 5 years are panicky. The next 5 years, you feel like you've really had, now I've perfected running a business. The next 5 years, you're asking, do I know how to run a business? And then maybe the next 5 years are better. Like, what do I do with this business? So we're that evolution, growth, maturity, expansion, contraction mechanism is what we're often comparing ourselves to. And I think that burnout is one of those transition moments when we're realizing the patterns that we traditionally do or have done over and over again are not having the same results. And that can be result to a bottom line or just a result of satisfaction. And I think when it comes to satisfaction, we're more lost than bottom line, right? If I'm a bottom line problem, I call RevThink. RevThink helps me with the bottom line. If I'm having a personal burnout because I'm not satisfied anymore. Where do I turn? How do I express it? Even harder, like I can't tell my employees, I can't tell my clients, should I even tell my wife? You question how vulnerable you can be when you're feeling it personally.
Well, I'm gonna speak from my story and see if anyone here can relate, because this is a common pattern, right? And maybe I was just thinking I should probably pull up our seasons diagram to reference things that might be helpful, right? Let's see, tell me if you can see this. So a lot of you know this.
Yeah.
A lot of you have seen this before. And what I'll just point out to you is there is a certain reality call as you evolve and grow, you become a bit of a victim of your own success. And as companies move through this season, I remember vividly when I was sort of moving from startup to emerging, you're very much in this, oh my gosh, I'm getting more projects and I'm getting clients and I'm starting to kind of make some money. This is good, but I'm also wearing so many hats. And then you have this realization called, well, I guess I just need more money, more clients, more projects, more computers, more people. And that doesn't ultimately solve the problem, because scale is not the solution, right? It's because things are getting more and more complex. And it's almost like for every extra ounce of effort you put out, you don't get the same return. So there's now this diminishing return. And I think, Tim, that's kind of what you were calling burnout.
Yeah, it's like the worst score we could keep is how many employees we have, how much money we generate, how many clients we have, whatever those numerical scorecards are, as if one more or one less has a major impact. 10 more would change who I am as a person, or my idea of success, or my impact. And there's no doubt, like we know this, like large corporations have an impact in our lives. They have an impact in our business lives. So there is opportunity for influence in a marketplace, and scale to some degree can gain you that influence because you're a behemoth. People have to pay attention to you. But for most of us that are navigating our careers, we're not getting to behemoth size. It's not even probably a goal that we have. But we have to still understand what is the opportunity, or what is the leverage I have while I'm living out this one season to help propel me into that next season. And my belief is if we're doing it proactively, then we've dissected that transition. If we're not doing it proactively, we're afraid. We look inward. We ask deep questions because this feels like it was strung on us. Oh my gosh, this is no longer satisfying. And we don't know what the other side of that transition looks like. So we are really pushing ourselves to just try harder. You know what? I'll just go back and do it more, and as if more effort is there. And we were joking before we got started with Ryan about but biology is real. Like at some point you just can't lift more. You can't stay awake more. You can't work more. You can't try harder. And your system will just break down. So there has to be a way of adjusting, recognizing when it's time to adjust, and then adjusting so that we can take those seasons in a proactive way. Not always, my favorite stuff to change seasons from one to the other, but when the time comes, I have to do it.
Well, you said something earlier as we were warming up that I thought was kind of cool. And that is, I'm going to sort of extrapolate on what you said. When you look at each of these seasons, do you see the white gap in between each one of them? I want to take the word that you said and say mindset. And maybe it's like mindset shift or new mindset. Like there's something that actually happens between each of these seasons where this isn't necessarily a linear, oh, I get more clients and more money and more fame, and it just kind of happens. There's something that transforms in the mind of the owner at each of those transitions. And I think that would be my encouragement to anyone that's thinking about burnout. I would say you're probably either needing to embrace a new mindset that's going to help you achieve that next season, or you might need to actually take it back a notch, take it down a level, and be thankful for what you have, and call it a season of fortifying and a season of strengthening, right? But don't stay on that boundary unless, because you're going to be burned out if you stay there for a long time.
Yeah, so let's do this, because this is a reality. It's a reality that we live as consultants, and just loving people it's a reality we live in. First of all, we have to give ourselves permission to know when we're done. So some of us are at this scale or time of our life where we know we're in a final season, and we all have to we give you permission to recognize, like, it's okay, you can be done, right? Joel, after 20 years of running your business, you just knew you were done. You needed permission, you need understanding, you need to know that I wasn't going to do it again. That time of my life is over. It's time to do something else.
And
so
it's worth mentioning that it was a good friend of mine, Ryan, who was a partner at Spilt, who gave me permission. He was the one that said, Joel, it's okay. You've accomplished everything you set out to do. You can set it down.
Yeah. And that's permission's important, because at least to get some outside perspective on it, because I think inside of our mind, there's always something that compares us, or we're wondering what people are going to think about us. So an open dialogue about that permission is really important. And that transition for you was to sell your company and become a consultant, but you had a vision of who you were. And one thing I recognized in you is that you remembered how you accomplished what you accomplished, and that reflective nature you have is so important for other people to hear, because not everyone captures those moments. So that season is a really important to recognize, is like the season of being done. But there's other seasons that happen in a smaller perspective, which is, let's give people permission or ability to reflect that what they're doing might not satisfy them anymore. And it's the thought of I love my job, I love my position, but going back and doing this same thing that I've been doing for 15 years, and it's not that someone won't benefit from it, but doing it again, I don't know how I feel about that. And especially if I've collected something over 15 years and I have more to give, there feels like something of an undercutting of a value that I have and where I'm going to place that value. So that makes all of us, when we're hitting those seasons, think about, well, what is this capability I now have? What is this work, and how might it be different? So Joel, you cover this in Jumpstart. There's a slide you have. If you have that thing up, it might be, but there's the season from emerging to thriving. If you remember, it's like it had 2 columns.
Oh yeah.
And there's a mindset shift that happens just in during that one season, that transition of seasons. That might be a good example of how those smaller seasons, it's not exiting season, but more of what makes the difference between what I'm doing now that would burn me out and what I could accomplish if I thought about it differently.
Here it is. It is this, sorry. I didn't get to the right slide. We were observing this transition from emerging to thriving, which is, granted, just one of the transitions. But you notice on the left, right, these are all these sort of reactionary and wearing all the hats and not being really in charge of your own destiny. And then there's this transition to being choosy and leading and diagnosing and the way you charge and leading. And we're saying, hey, it is possible for us to go through this transition. But notice, to your word, Tim, this is mostly about mindset. It's not about, if you can just hire the right people, or, if you could just get more money from your clients. Like if you could just get more of what you currently have, it will somehow get you what you want.
And to be clear, the emerging studio is a season that's also very exciting, right? There's a moment where you got chosen for a project that you've never been chosen for before, or you got to sit in room and pitch, and you've never put a pitch together before, and it worked and you won. Or there are certain clients or employees that you thought, I was never capable of having another creative director or working with a producer at that level. And the fact that they're willing to work for me, so that's an amazing evolution of your business, and it's one to be captured. But going back to that, thinking another producer and another project and another pitch, after 15 years, there's a reality of no, there's got to be something else about it. Yeah. So that thriving evolution that takes place is one where we say, hey, let's not ask to be chosen, let's choose. let's not just try to find the best cost scenarios. Let's present value. And let's not think, hope that one day I get a team. Let's determine our own future and have the team that we're hiring be strategic to get us places we've never been before. That's a need that we have. Once we hit that comfort zone of one of these business seasons, we have to recognize and evolve into a new business season and ask different questions. And again, that's where, if you ask me, our cohort dinners allow for people to be very vulnerable when they're processing those kind of changes, right? When a smaller production company is sitting next to one of the leaders of one of the top firms, and they get asked, what was it like when you were here? Mm-hmm. And that business owner goes, oh, I remember that, and I did this. And that mentoring and giving back is a possibility of, and receiving is a possibility of recognizing and how that builds up. But I'll speak to that too, is that often where we burn out is when we're so inward focused. And for me personally, when I hit burnout, I've realized, I need to turn myself to other people.
Yeah,
that other peopleness. And it's really interesting because what I use the term scorecard very liberally, but I really do mean it, is that when I think I'm going to keep score of what someone else is going to look at my life, and I'm going to think that's valuable, how someone looks at me, I often chasing something that's not mine. When I think about what I want to give to others, I take the time to understand who I am, what is important to me, and then I say, I want you to learn this. This is, when being a father of 5, I've learned this is how to raise 5 boys. And there's things that I know, and there's things I wish I wouldn't have done in doing that. And that gives me a chance to kind of decompress that burnout feeling and start recognizing, I am valuable. I'm not using it right now. Maybe I can think differently about what's important in life.
So what's the encouragement? I know we've got 10 more minutes here for somebody that's like, okay, I'm getting maybe the big idea, or at least the concept. Is there something practical? If I go back and I'm running Impossible Pictures right now, and I'm like, Tim, I can't do it. I'm so over it. I don't know. Maybe this is a quarterly call I make to you where I'm like, every quarter I go through this freak out of oh my God, I'm working all the time, and my people, I can't get them to do this, that, and the other. And the clients, they suck because they just da. And you would say, okay, Joel, I guess this is that call we have every quarter.
Yeah.
Right. Here you are again. Okay. How would you advise me?
Well, listen, if someone's calling me every quarter, we have very different problems than if someone's calling me for the first time asking me these questions, that's for sure. So one of the first things I would think about is, and we've talked about this, is I'd ask the question, what made you do this to begin with? What were your expectations when you started this current venture? And like Ryan told you, okay, you accomplished it, right? That's one perspective you can gain. The other might be, you haven't yet accomplished it. What did you expect doing the current actions you were doing, and where are those actions falling short? And if that, again, talking to hundreds of business owners now, I know that often the actions that they're doing are for outward focusing perspective, looking good for a client, looking good for an employee, looking good for another business owner. But when we get to sit down and say, yeah, but who are you really? Just tell me who you are really and what you're really trying to accomplish. We hear fame, fortune, freedom, and influence. And we say, let's start putting that into a plan and start recognizing how to influence your marketplace, your objectives, and give that off to others, to clients, to employees, to other business owners. Why don't you give it away and see if that accomplishes your goal?
I'm wondering, I was about to, I was sort of telegraphing and thinking, I think the other question you would ask me is, Joel, what is it that you're doing now that you weren't doing last quarter to make things any different? Right? And have you actually taken a step back and said, what would actually satisfy me is, right? And it's probably that transition from one season to the next. And it's called, okay, sure, there's pieces and parts we can put in place, but what's the mindset that's keeping you stuck here? And honestly, what why wouldn't it be this way? Why wouldn't you burn out every quarter? And why aren't we going to have this conversation 3 months from now? Because, you're just going to put some sort of a salve or Band-Aid on this thing. You'll feel a little bit better, right? You get a few nights good sleep, and then you'll be coming back 3 months from now and having the same old conversation.
Yeah. And then let's talk about real life, right? Like the reality is that our body needs oxygen, it needs water, it needs relationship, needs touch, physical touch. So we really need other human beings, and we need to think about who we are physically in this world, and know that we're not going to get it all from our business. No matter how many awards or projects you've done or success track record you have, how much money you have in your bank account, that doesn't lead to that other absolutely important part of your life, which is who you are in real life and what that means to be a person. So we often use this idea of work-life balance. And I like to say, no, it's just called work-life. They're all like, your balance really is the thing that it's not measurable or it's not achieved if you find the perfect balance, but you have a work-life process that you're running through. And we often understand work because it's very well promoted. We're not often understanding the life part of it. It's not very well promoted. So I might say, what if we lived life first? And this is what we do really simple. When we first work with somebody with their factors method, we say, every dollar that you need in your life is going to come from this business. Let's put your life into the bottom line and determine what it's going to cost you to get through your life. Mm-hmm. We could run that same exercise to say, every hour you're going to live in this life is going to be based off of the hours you live now. So who do you want to be in the real world? What kind of work do you want to contribute? What kind of recognition would you have if you accomplish that goal? Let's start doing that now. And that would be often when people are missing is a mentorship moment. They're missing something to pass on what they do know so other people can grow from it. And then lastly, you have to say, hey, what if every emotion you had to live in your life had to flow through this business? How are you going to handle that? Where are those spaces and opportunities and conversations going to take place in your business? So those emotions have their own pocket too. So that way life is happening in your work, and the work allows for you to have your life. That's what the kind of machine we want to build as business owners, just to recognize the independence that we have, the freedom, the money we can make, the fortunes, the recognition we have, the fame, all piles itself up, and we are in control of it. And that's how we determine our future, our goals, our objectives. So once permission is granted, which we want to give you permission to go look at this, I want people to dive deeper, tell themselves the truth, and work their way through it. And if it's time to exit, we give you permission. If it's time to lean in, we'll give you some skill.
Yeah. By the way, I was just going to see if there are any comments or questions here in the chat as we go through. So if you have a thought or something you want to drop in, feel free to chime in. So yeah, it's really interesting to think of, I don't know, there's just life, and work is part of life, and then there's the life part of life, and we think there's some sort of more of this, less of that, and if we can get it in balance. And I think you make a good point. I wouldn't know how to measure that.
Yeah, right. And that's where it really is. Some of the trick we have is that the items that are measurable are on a P&L sheet or on these, we're looking at visuals that recognize only one part of our life. And then we think, I'm not satisfied. I want more of that, more of those projects on my product, more people in my pipeline, bigger projects, more money, because that's what I can see. And then we have this not so visible thing we have to take care of. And because we can't see it, we often ignore it. We don't know how to recognize it. We don't get to see the opportunity.
Yeah. Do you think there's a thought to the idea of also what is it we want in the short term versus the long term? Like one thing that's a bit of a curse for most business owners, I think, is we love what we do. Like meaning we love our work. We love our business. And so it feels good to do it. And even if we work long hours and perhaps don't see necessarily the rewards, we will tell ourselves, yeah, but I love what I do. And it can almost, right? Like it's easy to talk about work-life balance when I look at somebody that has a job that I would despise, you know? Mm-hmm. Like if I was a controller at a company, sure, work-life balance would be really important for me because I would be like,
Yeah.
how can I spend as little time doing that and as much time doing all this other stuff? Got it. But if you love what you do, it really starts to become more of an equation of, yes, you love it, you enjoy it, working 40, 50, 80-hour weeks, right? Like you said, Tim, the pitching, the new clients, and you just did that amazing project. Oh, you just won that first award. You just hired that amazing EP that you've dreamed of working with. That all feels good. But then at some point you have to say, but wait a minute, over the long term, where's this ultimately leading to,
Right.
right?
Right. Because I love ice cream and mango margaritas. But more of that isn't going to get me to, because I like the way I feel after I eat
Right.
salad or drink a green juice, right? So there's got to be recognition of, like, regardless of what a sensationalization that I feel when I have one kind of food, there's a reality to who I am and the way I feel after having a different type of food. So it's the same is true when you're consuming anything, and work is one of those things you consume. Hey, Matt Packwood had a question for us.
Oh, you have a question, Matt. You want to type it
Yep.
or you want
So,
to talk? Okay, cool.
so basically, when work's going really great, because my work's going really great at the moment, but I feel like outside forces, like my wife's work's going really poorly, and she's burnt out and just really not enjoying her work. How do you react to that? Like, I find that, that my work is being affected by my wife's inability to have a good time, basically, because of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, life would be so much better if it wasn't for all these other people in it, wouldn't it? Just like, man, we could just live right. I'm just kidding. You're totally right. There is, when we're in the flow of things, it is very difficult to connect with others, especially people we're very committed to. And life often asks us to make those choices. It's the choices I hate the most. There's this really important opportunity and there's this really important moment, and I have to choose between the two. And cloning is not an opportunity I have. But here's what I know, and I'm dead serious about this. I know a lot of 50 and 60-year-old creative entrepreneurs that regret every moment they dedicated to their business over their life. And it's really easy to see that. It's really easy to see when it's all said and done, nobody really remembers that one project you did 20 years. You would, but no one else remembers that. It's not something they're reconciling.
I don't
But
even
they know
remember.
when you showed up. Yeah, right. Yeah. And they know when you showed up. They know when you talk to them. They know when you give back. It's one of the things I love about going to a conference is that you often forget all the people you connect with. And it's so wonderful when you see somebody from years ago and they say, oh man, when you told me this one thing, it just changed the way I thought about life. And I never really had that moment to make that happen. And I remember those conversations, and I appreciate that impact way more than delivering some title sequence from Tony Scott, 20 years ago. But it was a fun moment. It was great to work with Tony. It's 8 weeks of my life, and then I had to deliver another one, and then I had to deliver another one. I had to, there's no end to that part of life. But working with others and dedicating yourself to others, it's just, life is more valuable. So that means cutting back, taking a vacation, making sure your wife knows what's important, telling your employees or telling your client they can't do that right now because I have something else I have to do. Say la vie, there will be more.
Yeah, that's not a failure, right, Tim, to suddenly say, hey, my priorities are different now. 5 years ago when I was in that startup or emerging season, my priorities were this, and now I'm reaching into this thriving season where my priorities will be something else. And okay, what would it look like to create a plan and bring that about and make it actually happen? And it's not just, oh, more. The solution is not just more.
That's so. I mean, my family, we're going to be empty nesters soon, like in 2 years. And my wife has homeschooled 5 boys for 20 something years now. So you can imagine the life transition we're about to go through. Luckily, 8 years ago, I told her, hey, in 10 years, we're going to be empty nesters. And we can't just wait and then have you wonder what you're going to do. We have to start asking questions. So we've been slowly going at it. And it's, we have intense fellowship sometimes trying to figure out what this might mean for us and our family. but there is a reality to the person I'm living with, and knowing that that person has seasons of life as well as I do, and we have to be reconciling and talking together. So when they're in front of us, we know how to deal with them. If we ignore them, crash and burn.
Well, here's my version of the story that relates back to my business and my story, that I think a lot of people, they kind of freak out when I tell this story. And by the way, we're 1 minute over, so I'll make it super quick. It was always my dream.
This is cheaper than therapy, Joel. We can do this for a little bit longer.
Well, look, when I was running Impossible, it was always my dream. Oh my gosh, I want to do network TV, right? Branding and packaging and promos. That was my dream. And I achieved that goal. We did so much work for that space and did rebrands and launched TV networks and all that. And it was so awesome. Up until after doing that for, I don't know, 10, 12 something years, totally caught me off guard when one day I woke up, and as the saying goes, when my feet hit the floor and it was time to go do the next investigation discovery promo, I said, I don't care. And I didn't see that coming. So to your point, it was like I was obviously entering a new season of life in business, and I just didn't ever expect that my desires would change, my values would change. Like I didn't see it coming. So then I was like, uh-oh, now what? I don't care about this business. I don't care about doing the next promo for these TV networks. So don't use me as the example. Don't be me. Don't let that happen to you. Don't wake up one day and be like, uh-oh, I'm totally burned out and I don't know what to do.
Or if you find yourself in a situation, call it out. Recognize there's a moment to have a conversation, and there's people there that want to live this life with you and help you.
Yeah.
Right. That's because sometimes it does catch us off guard, or we know it's coming. What you were saying about your trainer? You have to pay for it eventually. Yeah, and so even though it's coming, if you're not paying for it in slow pieces, when it comes and you pay the big price, you still have to transition through it. And it's not the end of life.
Yeah.
It's just not. When the time comes to close down your business, it wasn't the end of your whole career, was it?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good way to end with the encouragement of one reason we're so passionate about community is community. One of the big benefits is it provides perspective. There are people before me. There are people coming after me, right? And we all have so much to learn from each other. And it's amazing how willing people are to share where they are on that journey, what it's like, right? I'm sharing my story with this community right here, right now. So take advantage of the community that we have, because all those owners there are there because they want to connect. They want to share their story. They want to hear your story.
And I'm gonna tell people it's good to plug in. When I run a workshop, when you're running confab workshop, that's when those conversations are taking place. So get involved in a workshop, be part of this investigation with other people, and listen to other people and be willing to share with other people. That's just part of that perspective. It's better than just the chat rooms on RevCommunity. And then the cohort dinners or the conferences we go to, when we get us down in small groups and ask more intimate questions and kind of people drop their guard. It's absolutely amazing when those dinners take place, or those breakout rooms in the conferences, what we do. It's fascinating. And I truly, when I say I love people in this space, I truly love people. And that's why I love those moments. To me, that's church. I want to go do that all the time.
Yeah. Well, meet me in Barcelona for off, because we're going to definitely throw down and get after it, probably late until the evening, into the wee hours. So
or are we doing something? Are we doing something for NFT LA at late March? I think Emmett's pulling something together for late March too in Los Angeles.
Well, I've learned in life you just always say yes, Tim. Yes, of course we are. Now we just have to go figure it out. So stay tuned.
All right, there you go.
All right. So for those of you in LA, we'll be out there for NFT LA, and we'll organize something.
And let me be serious about this. We exist so you can thrive in your business and in your life, in your career. And we're here to help you. Please, at any point, reach out to us. We're open books, as you can see. We want to hear your conversations. We want to hear what's going on in your life. And anything we can do to help or connect you with people to help is our pleasure. So feel free to do that. We truly love you all. And blessings to you. Burnout, we're praying for you. Hope all is well with you, and keep up the good work.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. And Ryan, we'll see you in LA. Bye, everyone.
Bye.